The cowboy found a Navajo woman tied to a tree. Her punishment will break your heart. The sun was slowly setting behind the distant red mountains, painting the sky with shades of orange and purple. A lone cowboy rode along a dusty trail, his horse's hooves stirring small clouds of sand with every step. He had been traveling for hours, following the path that led through stretches of dry land and rocky hills. The cowboy's face was tanned and weathered, proof of years spent working under the harsh desert sun. His eyes were sharp and alert, always scanning the horizon for signs of trouble or opportunity. As he rode, the cowboy enjoyed the familiar feeling of being alone in nature. There was a freedom in it, a sense that the wide, open desert belonged to no one, and yet it belonged to everyone who respected it. He had grown up learning how to survive in this harsh environment, understanding the behavior of wild animals, the patterns of the wind, and the signs that could tell him where water might be found. The desert was not an easy place, but it was honest. It gave nothing without effort, and it demanded respect from anyone who wanted to live there. That evening, however, something caught his eye that was very different from the usual sights of the desert. Far off, near a cluster of thorny shrubs and rocks, he noticed a figure that did not belong there. At first, he thought it might be a tree or a bush shaped strangely by the wind. But as he drew closer, the figure began to move slightly, and the cowboy realized that it was a person, a woman, tied to a tree. She was barely able to stand, her body leaning against the rough bark for support. The ropes around her wrists and ankles were tight, and the way she tried to shift her weight suggested she had been struggling to free herself for some time. The cowboy's heart immediately sank. He had seen hardship before, but seeing someone left alone in such a vulnerable state made a knot of anger and worry tighten in his chest. He urged his horse forward, trying to get there as quickly as possible without spooking the animal. As he drew nearer, he noticed more details. Her clothes were dusty and torn in places, her hair was matted, and her face had streaks of dirt and tears. Despite the harsh sunlight, her eyes looked alert and wary, filled with a mixture of fear and exhaustion. "Hey, are you okay?" the cowboy called out, keeping his voice calm but firm. He dismounted quickly, moving cautiously toward her. The desert was quiet again, the only sounds being the soft crunch of sand under his boots and the gentle whinny of his horse. The woman flinched slightly at his voice, unsure if he was friend or foe. But there was something in his calm tone, something that made her hesitate from resisting. When he reached her, the cowboy knelt down at eye level. "It's all right. I'm not going to hurt you," he said. "I'm here to help. Can you tell me your name?" The woman blinked, her eyes wary but slowly softening as she realized he was sincere. She took a shuddering breath. My name is Nayeli," she said quietly. The cowboy repeated her name softly, making sure he remembered it. Names were important. They were personal, a way to show respect to someone, especially in moments like this when trust had to be earned carefully. The cowboy studied the ropes that bound her. They were tied tightly, cutting slightly into her skin, evidence that she had been left there for some time. He reached for the knots, moving carefully so as not to hurt her further. Nayeli flinched at first, but the cowboy's gentle hands and patient movements reassured her. Slowly he began to untie the ropes, freeing her hands first. As her wrists were released, she rubbed them, wincing slightly at the rawness of the skin. Then he worked on her feet, helping her stand upright. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice hoarse from hours of silence and fear. The cowboy nodded, offering a small, comforting smile. "You're safe now," he said. "Let's get you somewhere you can rest and drink some water." Nayeli nodded, leaning slightly on his shoulder as they began to walk back toward the trail. Her movements were slow and careful. The desert ground was uneven, and she had not walked freely in a long time. The cowboy stayed close, his presence steady and reassuring. As they walked, she glanced around, her eyes filled with both wonder and caution. The desert, which could be so cruel, was also strangely beautiful. The red rocks, the golden sand, and the purple shadows of the mountains created a landscape that seemed almost magical, even in the midst of her pain. Once they reached a small shaded area near a cluster of rocks, the cowboy helped Naomi sit down. He offered her water from his canteen, which she drank eagerly, her hands shaking as she held the cup. Each sip seemed to revive a little of her strength, and the cowboy watched carefully, making sure she didn't drink too quickly and harm herself. After a few minutes, Naomi began to speak, her voice still quiet but gaining confidence. They said I broke the rules," she said, her eyes downcast. I didn't mean to, I just needed to survive." Her words trembled with fear and sadness. The cowboy listened attentively, feeling a deep anger at the injustice she had suffered. He knew life in the desert was hard, but punishing someone so cruelly for trying to survive was unforgivable. "Take your time," he said gently. "You don't have to tell me everything at once. I just want to make sure you're okay right now." Naomi nodded and leaned back, letting herself rest against the warm rock. For a long moment, they sat in silence. The cowboy could hear the distant cry of a hawk and the soft whisper of the wind through the desert shrubs. The quiet was comforting, a stark contrast to the fear and tension that had filled Naomi's day. Slowly, she began to open up, telling him how she had been punished for something that had been blown out of proportion, for actions that to her were necessary for her safety. The cowboy felt a mixture of sadness and admiration. Sadness for what she had endured and admiration for her courage. To survive such an ordeal required strength, and the fact that she was still willing to speak to him showed her resilience. He made a silent vow to help her, to make sure she was safe and cared for, at least until she could return to her community. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over the desert, the cowboy realized that the day was ending, but the real challenge of helping Naomi was just beginning. He knew they would have to move carefully, avoid dangers, and find shelter for the night. But more importantly, he knew that trust had been built in these few short moments, a trust that could make all the difference in what came next. The cowboy led Naomi to a safer spot nearby, where they could rest for the night. He set up a small campfire, careful to keep it controlled, and offered her some simple food he had with him. Naomi ate slowly, still cautious, but the warmth of the fire and the presence of someone who cared gave her a sense of relief she had not felt in hours. As the night deepened and the stars appeared one by one, the cowboy and Naomi shared small stories, learning about each other. He learned about her life in the Navajo community, the values she held dear, and the family she missed. She learned about his years on the ranch, the lessons he had learned from the desert, and the friends he had made along the way. For a moment, the harsh desert felt less lonely, less cruel, and more like a place where compassion could exist even in the toughest conditions. By the time they finally settled down to rest, both felt a cautious sense of hope. Naomi, though still shaken, felt safer than she had in hours. The cowboy, though aware of the dangers ahead, felt determined to protect her. The desert had witnessed another small act of courage and kindness, a reminder that even in the harshest places, humanity could shine through. And as the cool night air settled over the red sands, the cowboy knew that tomorrow would bring more challenges, but also the chance to do what was right, to help someone who had suffered unfairly, and perhaps, in doing so, change the course of her life forever. The night in the desert was calm, yet the events of the day weighed heavily on both the cowboy and Naomi. As the small fire flickered, casting dancing shadows across the sand and rocks, Naomi remained quiet, her thoughts far away. She traced the edges of the blanket around her shoulders, lost in memories of her home, her family, and the life she had been forced to leave behind, even if only for a short while. The cowboy noticed her silence but chose not to push her. He understood that trust, once broken, could not be rushed back. All he could do was offer safety and patience, and perhaps, in time, she would share her story with him fully. Finally, as the night grew darker and cooler, Naeli spoke, her voice soft but steady. They said I had done something wrong," she began. Her eyes remained on the fire, its light reflecting in her tear-filled gaze. "They said I disobeyed rules, but it wasn't like that. I only wanted to survive. I didn't want to hurt anyone." The cowboy listened closely. He could feel the weight of her words and the truth behind them. There was a sadness in her tone, a sorrow that had nothing to do with the desert or the sun or the heat. It was a sorrow born from injustice. "Tell me what happened," he said gently. "I want to understand." Naeli hesitated for a moment. Her lips trembled as she gathered courage to speak. "I was traveling alone," she said. "I had to find food and water. I had no one to help me. I made a choice to take what I needed from the land. But someone saw me, and they thought I was stealing, breaking rules that I didn't even know were strict. They said I was disobedient and they tied me here. They left me for hours in the sun and wind." She swallowed hard, tears escaping despite her efforts. The cowboy felt anger rising inside him. He had seen many injustices in his life, but hearing Naeli's story made his blood boil. The desert was harsh, but cruel people were even harsher. He reached out and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "That's not fair," he said. "What they did to you, it was wrong. You were only trying to survive, and survival is never a crime." Naeli looked at him with a mix of relief and disbelief. It was rare to find someone who truly listened, someone who believed in her truth without judgment. "Thank you," she whispered. "No one has ever said that to me before." The cowboy nodded. "It's okay. Right now, the most important thing is that you're safe. We'll figure out the rest later, but for now, you rest. Tomorrow, we'll think about how to get you home safely." As the hours passed, Naeli began to share more details about her life. She spoke of her family, the traditions she grew up with, and the lessons she had learned in her community. Her words painted a picture of a life rooted in respect for the land, for family, and for the wisdom passed down through generations. She told him about her younger brothers and sisters, about her parents, and about the community elders who guided their people with patience and care. The cowboy listened, fascinated. He had always admired strength and wisdom, but what struck him most was Naeli's resilience. Despite everything she had endured that day, despite the fear and pain, she carried herself with dignity. Her spirit had not been broken, and he felt a deep respect for her courage. In return, he shared his own story in the simplest words he could find. He told her about his life as a cowboy, the long days spent tending cattle, repairing fences, and riding through the desert. He told her about the lessons he had learned from the land, how to read the sky for signs of weather, how to find water in the driest places, and how to survive when the odds seemed impossible. Naeli listened intently, her eyes wide with curiosity. She asked questions about the animals he had seen, the storms he had survived, and the people he had met along the way. For a moment, the desert seemed to shrink around them. The vast, lonely landscape felt warmer, less harsh, as if the act of sharing stories had created a small bubble of humanity in the middle of the wilderness. The fire crackled softly, the only sound besides their voices, and the stars above shone like silent witnesses to their conversation. After a while, Naeli grew quiet again, and the cowboy respected her need for rest. He ensured that she was comfortable, adjusting her blanket and moving a few rocks to create a smoother place for her to sit. He kept watch through the night, alert to any signs of danger, and ready to protect her if needed. Despite the darkness and the chill of the desert night, there was a sense of calm in his vigilance, a promise that she would not face the world alone anymore. As dawn approached, the first light of morning crept over the horizon, casting a golden glow across the desert. Naeli stirred, stretching her arms and feeling the warmth of the fire slowly fading. The cowboy offered her a simple breakfast, some bread, water, and dried fruit. She ate slowly, savoring each bite, and the energy seemed to return to her body bit by bit. Once she was ready, they began walking toward a safer path, one that would lead them away from the place where she had been punished. Nayeli's steps were hesitant at first, but the cowboy matched his pace to hers, offering steady support. The desert stretched endlessly before them, but for the first time, it felt less threatening. With someone by her side who genuinely cared, she began to regain confidence in her ability to navigate the harsh terrain. As they walked, Nayeli shared more about the events leading up to her punishment. She spoke of how fear had driven her actions, how survival had been her only goal, and how quickly misunderstanding could turn into harsh judgment. The cowboy nodded, understanding all too well that life was not always fair, especially for those who were vulnerable. He wanted to shield her from the cruelty of the world, even though he knew that was not always possible. Along the way, they encountered small signs of life in the desert: birds perched on thorny shrubs, rabbits darting across the sand, and the distant silhouette of a coyote. Nayeli's eyes lit up at each sight, a reminder that beauty could exist even in the most unforgiving places. The cowboy smiled, glad to see her noticing the world around her, finding moments of wonder despite her suffering. By mid-morning, they found a small shaded area near a dry stream bed. It wasn't much, but it provided some relief from the sun and a place for Nayeli to rest again. She sank to the ground, her body tired but her spirit slowly healing. The cowboy sat beside her, keeping watch and offering quiet encouragement. "You're doing well," he said. "One step at a time. We'll get through this together." Nayeli nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. For the first time since the punishment, she felt a sense of hope. The fear that had consumed her was still present, but it was no longer overwhelming. With the cowboy by her side, she realized that she could survive this ordeal and continue forward. They stayed there for some time, resting and talking quietly. Nayeli asked questions about the cowboy's experiences, and he shared stories of his travels, of the people he had met, and the lessons he had learned. Through these stories, a bond began to form, a bond built on trust, respect, and shared understanding. The desert, once a place of fear for Nayeli, became a backdrop for connection and healing. As the day wore on, the cowboy began to plan their next steps. They would need to travel carefully, avoiding dangerous paths and finding safe places to rest. He considered the best routes to reach a nearby settlement where Nayeli could find help and eventually return to her community. But more than that, he thought about how he could support her, ensuring that she felt empowered and respected throughout the journey. Nayeli watched him, grateful for his thoughtfulness. She realized that kindness could exist even in unexpected places, and that sometimes the simplest gestures, listening, offering water, standing by someone in need, could make the greatest difference. She felt a growing sense of determination, knowing that she had someone who believed in her and was willing to help her reclaim her safety and dignity. By evening, they prepared to move again, gathering their few belongings and setting out along the trail. The sun was low, casting long shadows and bathing the desert in warm, golden light. The journey was still uncertain, and challenges awaited them, but for the first time, Nayeli felt that she was not alone. She had a companion who cared for her, and that made all the difference. As they walked, the cowboy spoke softly, reminding her to stay strong and trust in her own instincts. Nayeli nodded, drawing courage from his words and the bond they were forming. The desert stretched endlessly around them, but they moved forward together, step by step, facing each challenge with determination and hope. In that quiet, sunlit desert, amidst the harsh beauty of the land and the shadows of the past, a small seed of trust and friendship had been planted. Nayeli had survived the punishment, but more importantly, she had found someone who believed in her, someone willing to walk beside her when the world seemed unfair and unforgiving. And in that moment, the beginnings of a journey toward healing, justice, and hope had begun. The morning sun rose slowly over the desert, casting long shadows across the sand and rocky hills. The warmth of the light was gentle at first, filling the landscape with gold and orange hues. Nayeli stretched carefully, feeling the stiffness in her limbs from the hours of struggle and fear the day before. The cowboy offered her a small smile as she stood, steadying herself. "You're stronger than you think," he said quietly. "We'll get you to safety, step by step." Nayeli nodded, her gaze shifting to the endless desert ahead. The journey would not be easy, but the cowboy's calm presence gave her courage. Together, they set off along the narrow trail, moving carefully over the uneven ground. The desert was alive with subtle sounds, the soft rustle of wind through sparse shrubs, the distant cry of birds, and the occasional scurry of small animals across the sand. Each sound reminded Nayeli that life continued, even in the harshest places, and that she, too, could continue despite the pain she had endured. As they walked, Nayeli told the cowboy more about her life before the punishment. She spoke of her family, describing her parents' gentle guidance, and the way her community came together to help one another. She shared memories of her younger siblings, their laughter filling the quiet desert in her mind, and of the elders who taught her the importance of respect, patience, and courage. The cowboy listened intently, absorbing each word, understanding the depth of her connection to her people and her land. The cowboy knew that trust was fragile, especially for someone who had been mistreated. He spoke little of himself now, choosing instead to let Nayeli tell her story. Yet through her words, he learned not only about her past but also about her character, the strength that had kept her alive, the wisdom that guided her choices, and the resilience that had allowed her to endure hours of fear and uncertainty tied to that tree. As the day grew hotter, the cowboy led Nayeli toward a small area of shade beneath a cluster of rocks. He had noticed it from a distance and knew it would provide some relief from the sun. "We'll rest here for a while," he said, helping her down gently. "Drink some water and take your time." Nayeli gratefully accepted, drinking slowly from the canteen he handed her. Each sip seemed to bring some life back to her tired body. While she rested, the cowboy kept watch, scanning the desert for signs of danger. He had spent years learning to read the subtle cues of the land, shadows that suggested movement, footprints in the sand, or the distant glimmer of sunlight on metal. He knew that the desert could be unpredictable, and he wanted to ensure that Nayeli remained safe. The hours passed slowly, but their pace allowed her to regain strength, both physically and emotionally. Once she felt ready, they continued their journey. The trail became steeper, the terrain more rugged, but Nayeli moved forward with determination. The cowboy stayed close, offering encouragement when her steps faltered. "One step at a time," he said. "You're doing just fine, we're getting there." His words were simple but carried a deep reassurance. Nayeli felt herself leaning on his guidance, trusting in his knowledge of the land and his steady presence. As they traveled, they encountered a small herd of deer grazing near a dry creek bed. Nayeli paused, fascinated by the sight. "They're beautiful," she whispered, her eyes following the graceful movements of the animals. The cowboy nodded. "They are, and they survive here just like us. You see, the desert may be harsh, but life always finds a way." Nayeli smiled faintly, feeling a small spark of hope in her heart. The beauty of the desert and its creatures reminded her that survival was possible, even after hardship. Later, as they moved through a narrow canyon, Nayeli stumbled on a loose rock. The cowboy caught her arm instantly, steadying her before she could fall. "Careful," he said softly. "You don't want to hurt yourself." She looked up at him, gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you," she said. "I don't know what I would have done without you." The cowboy shook his head. "You're stronger than you realize. I'm just here to help you see it." The day wore on, and the sun climbed higher in the sky. Heat radiated from the rocks and sand, making the air shimmer. The cowboy guided Nayeli toward a small oasis he knew about from his previous travels, a spot with a few scraggly trees and a shallow pool of water. It wasn't much, but it would provide a safe place to rest and recover. When they arrived, Nayeli knelt by the water, cupping her hands to drink. The cool liquid was a relief to her parched throat and tired body. She looked up at the cowboy, a faint smile breaking through her weariness. "I feel stronger now," she said. They rested there for several hours, shaded by the trees, with the cowboy keeping a watchful eye on their surroundings. Nayeli used the time to regain her energy, leaning against a rock and closing her eyes, letting the quiet desert comfort her. The cowboy gathered some dry wood and prepared a small fire, not for heat but to signal safety and comfort, a small gesture to help her feel protected. As the afternoon passed, Nayeli began to talk more freely about her life and her experiences. She spoke of the challenges she had faced, of the times she had been judged unfairly, and of the strength she had discovered within herself to keep moving forward. The cowboy listened quietly, offering encouragement and understanding. He realized that her story was not only about survival in the desert, but also about resilience in the face of injustice. By evening, the cowboy decided it was time to move again. They needed to find a safe settlement where Nayeli could seek further help and eventually return to her community. He helped her to her feet, offering support as they began walking once more. The desert was bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun, the rocks casting long shadows across their path. The colors of the sky shifted from gold to deep orange, and then to soft purple, creating a breathtaking scene that momentarily lifted their spirits. As they walked, Nayeli reflected on the day's events. Despite the fear and pain she had experienced, she felt a growing sense of hope. She realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to keep moving forward despite it. The cowboy's presence reminded her that trust and compassion could exist even in a harsh world, and that she could rely on others without losing her strength or dignity. The cowboy noticed the change in her demeanor. "You're doing well," he said. "Each step we take is bringing you closer to safety, and you're learning to trust yourself again." Nayeli nodded, feeling the truth of his words. She had endured so much, yet she was still standing, still moving, still believing that she could reach a place where she would be safe and free from judgment. As night fell, they found a small, sheltered area beneath a rocky overhang. The cowboy built a fire for warmth and comfort, and Nayeli rested nearby. They shared a quiet meal, the firelight reflecting in their eyes. The desert, which could be unforgiving and lonely, had become a place of connection and healing. In the stillness of the night, they both understood that their journey was about more than just survival. It was about courage, trust, and the small acts of kindness that could make the hardest paths bearable. Before they slept, Nayeli looked up at the stars, feeling a sense of peace she had not known in hours. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." The cowboy placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You did all the hard work," he said. "I'm just here to make sure you don't have to do it alone." Nayeli smiled faintly, her heart lighter than it had been the day before. As they rested, the cowboy thought about the days ahead. There would be challenges, of course, and the desert could still be dangerous. But he also knew that with patience, courage, and mutual trust, they could face whatever came their way. Nayeli had already proven her strength and resilience, and he would help her carry that strength forward until she reached safety. The night passed quietly, and the first light of dawn began to touch the horizon, signaling a new day. Nayeli awoke feeling stronger, more determined, and more hopeful. The journey was far from over, but she now had someone by her side who believed in her and would not let her face danger alone. Together, they prepared to continue, ready to face whatever the desert had in store for them, knowing that they could rely on each other for support, guidance, and courage. And so, with the morning sun warming their backs and the endless desert stretching ahead, the cowboy and Nayeli began the next part of their journey. Each step forward was a step towards safety, justice, and a future where Nayeli could reclaim her dignity and strength. The bond they had formed in the quiet moments of the past days would carry them through the challenges ahead, a reminder that even in the harshest conditions, hope, trust, and compassion could prevail. By the time they reached the edge of the desert, the golden glow of the evening sun bathed the land in a warm, comforting light. Naomi's steps were steadier now, her body recovering from the exhaustion she had endured during her punishment and the long journey. The cowboy had guided her carefully, giving her support when needed, encouraging her when doubt crept in, and never leaving her side. Yet as they approached the first settlement, both of them knew that the challenges of survival were not over. The desert might be behind them, but society still had its own rules, judgments, and injustices to face. The small town they arrived in was quiet, with a few scattered homes, a trading post, and a dusty main street. As they walked through it, Naomi felt a wave of apprehension. The faces of the townspeople, curious and wary, turned toward her. Some looked with sympathy, others with suspicion, and a few whispered among themselves. She felt the weight of their judgment pressing on her, a reminder that her struggle was far from over. The cowboy noticed her unease and gently squeezed her hand. "Ignore them," he said. "We're here to find help, and that's all that matters." They approached the trading post, where the owner, an older man with kind eyes, noticed their arrival. The cowboy explained the situation briefly, emphasizing Naomi's need for rest, care, and understanding. The man immediately offered them a quiet space to stay, as well as food and water. Naomi drank eagerly, her body finally beginning to feel nourished after days of hardship. The cowboy stayed close, quietly ensuring that she felt safe and respected. Despite the small comfort of the trading post, word of Naomi's presence spread quickly through the town. Some people were supportive, expressing concern for her well-being and offering assistance. They admired her resilience and were angered by the cruelty she had suffered. Others, however, whispered critical remarks, repeating the same accusations that had led to her punishment in the first place. They questioned her actions, assuming she had done something wrong, without taking the time to understand her side of the story. Naomi felt a mixture of emotions: gratitude for those who offered kindness, anger at those who judged her unfairly, and sadness at the reality that injustice could follow her even after she had escaped the desert. The cowboy noticed the turmoil in her eyes and spoke softly. "Don't let their words define you," he said. "You know the truth of what happened, and that's what matters. Let's focus on getting you the help you need." Over the next few days, the cowboy helped Naomi navigate the practical challenges of her situation. They visited local authorities to report the injustice she had faced, carefully explaining the circumstances that had led to her punishment. Naomi spoke with courage and clarity, recounting the events in her own words. She described the confusion, the misunderstanding, and the fear she had endured, as well as the resilience that had allowed her to survive. The authorities listened, though their reactions were mixed. Some expressed sympathy and promised to look into the matter further. Others were dismissive, unwilling to challenge the rules that had caused Naomi's suffering. The cowboy remained by her side throughout, supporting her, speaking on her behalf when needed, and ensuring that she was treated with respect. He understood that fighting for justice could be slow and frustrating, but he also knew that every small step mattered. During this time, Naomi also began to share her story with the townspeople who were willing to listen. She spoke at gatherings, quietly at first, then with increasing confidence. Her words carried weight, not only because of the injustice she had endured, but also because of the strength and dignity with which she presented herself. People began to see her not as someone who had broken rules, but as a brave individual who had survived a harsh ordeal and sought help when she needed it most. The cowboy watched with quiet pride as Naomi reclaimed her voice. He had seen the fear in her eyes when he first found her, the hesitation in her movements, and the way she had doubted her own worth. But now she stood tall, speaking for herself and inspiring others to recognize her humanity. It was a transformation born of courage, trust, and the bond they had formed in the desert. Despite these small victories, Nayeli faced challenges from those who refused to see the truth. Some townspeople continued to spread rumors and question her actions, hoping to diminish the significance of her story. Nayeli felt the sting of their words but drew strength from the support around her, the cowboy, the sympathetic townspeople, and her own growing confidence. She realized that the journey toward justice was not only about correcting past wrongs, but also about standing firm in her truth, regardless of others' opinions. The cowboy and Nayeli also had to navigate practical matters, such as finding a way for her to return safely to her community. They spoke with travelers, arranged transportation, and planned routes that would keep her safe from potential danger. Each decision was made with care, ensuring that Nayeli felt empowered and respected throughout the process. The cowboy insisted on including her in every choice, reinforcing the trust and partnership that had developed between them. During this period, Nayeli also began to reflect on her own resilience and growth. She recognized that the punishment she had suffered, though cruel and unfair, had revealed strengths within her that she had not known existed. She could survive adversity, speak her truth, and seek help when needed. The experience had tested her in every way, physically, emotionally, and mentally. But she had endured, and in doing so, she had become stronger and more determined than ever. The cowboy noticed these changes in her demeanor as well. The fear that had once shadowed her eyes was gradually replaced by determination. Her posture became more confident, her voice more assured. He felt a deep respect for her courage, and admired the way she faced both the challenges of the desert and the challenges of society with dignity. In his own way, he had also learned from her resilience, understanding that true strength often revealed itself in moments of vulnerability and trust. As the days passed, Nayeli began to form connections with the townspeople who had shown her kindness. She shared meals, listened to their stories, and offered her own insights and wisdom. These interactions reinforced the idea that, even in a world that could be harsh and unfair, there were people who were willing to stand up for what was right, offer help, and recognize the humanity of others. Nayeli felt a renewed sense of hope, understanding that the world was not entirely cruel and that small acts of compassion could have a profound impact. By the time the week came to an end, Nayeli was ready to continue her journey toward her community. She had regained her strength, clarified the truth of her situation, and reclaimed her voice. The cowboy had stood by her side every step of the way, providing support, protection, and encouragement. Together, they had navigated the fallout of her punishment, faced skepticism and judgment, and discovered allies in unexpected places. Before she left, Nayeli turned to the cowboy, gratitude shining in her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you," she said softly. "You've given me hope when I thought there was none left." The cowboy smiled, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You did all the hard work," he said. "I was just here to make sure you didn't have to do it alone. Remember that strength you found, it's yours to carry always." As Nayeli prepared to continue her journey, the townspeople who had supported her gathered to wish her well. They offered food, water, and kind words, acknowledging her courage and resilience. Even those who had been skeptical began to see the truth of her story, understanding that judgment without knowledge was unjust, and that compassion and understanding were far more powerful than harsh rules. With the cowboy by her side, Nayeli walked out of the town, the horizon stretching wide before them. Each step was a reminder of the journey she had endured, the strength she had discovered, and the hope that now guided her forward. The desert lay behind her, the town now a memory of both challenge and support, and ahead was the path to her community, to her family, and to the life she had fought to protect. In those quiet moments of reflection, Nayeli understood that the punishment she had suffered, though heartbreaking, had not defined her. Instead, It had revealed her courage, resilience, and capacity to trust and connect with others. She carried these lessons with her, ready to face the future with determination and hope, knowing that she was stronger than any obstacle that might come her way. The cowboy walked beside her, proud of the journey she had undertaken and the strength she had shown. He knew that the road ahead might still hold challenges, but he also knew that Nayeli had the resilience to overcome them. Together, they moved forward step by step toward a brighter future, carrying with them the lessons of the desert, the bond they had formed, and the enduring truth that courage and compassion could triumph even in the face of injustice. The morning sun rose gently over the horizon, painting the desert in soft shades of gold and pink. Nayeli took a deep breath of the crisp, cool air, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The days of hardship, fear, and uncertainty were behind her, replaced by the promise of safety, hope, and a path back to her community. The journey had been long and challenging, but it had also been transformative, teaching her the power of resilience, trust, and courage. She walked beside the cowboy, her steps steady and confident. The bond they had formed in the desert and strengthened through every trial was unspoken but deeply felt. He had guided her, protected her, and encouraged her to reclaim her voice. And in return, Nayeli had found her own strength, learning to trust not only others but also herself. Every step forward felt like a small victory, a reminder that she had endured, survived, and grown stronger through her ordeal. As they traveled, Nayeli reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She remembered the moment the cowboy had first found her, tied to the tree, her body aching and her spirit weighed down by fear. She thought of the desert, its harsh sun, its shifting sands, and the quiet moments of beauty that had offered glimpses of hope. She recalled the townspeople who had judged her unfairly, as well as those who had shown kindness and compassion. Each memory, both painful and uplifting, had shaped the person she had become. The cowboy noticed her thoughtful expression and offered a small smile. "You're quiet today," he said softly. "Thinking about the journey?" Nayeli nodded. "Yes," she replied. "I'm thinking about everything that's happened, how far I've come and how much I've learned." The cowboy nodded in agreement. "You've shown a lot of courage," he said. "Not just surviving but facing the world after all you've been through. That takes strength." Nayeli smiled faintly, a mixture of gratitude and humility in her expression. She realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward despite it. The desert had tested her in every possible way, physically, emotionally, and mentally. But it had also revealed strengths she had not known she possessed. And now, with each step closer to her community, she felt more empowered to embrace her future. As they approached the outskirts of her community, Nayeli felt a rush of emotions, excitement, relief, and a touch of nervousness. She had been away, isolated and vulnerable, and returning meant confronting both familiar faces and the memories of her ordeal. Yet she also felt a profound sense of hope. She knew that the bond she had formed with the cowboy, the trust she had rebuilt in herself, and the lessons she had learned along the way would guide her as she re-entered her community. When they arrived, Nayeli was greeted by familiar faces, family members, friends, and neighbors who had worried for her safety. Her younger siblings ran to her, their laughter filling the air, while her parents embraced her tightly, relief and love shining in their eyes. Tears streamed down Nayeli's cheeks as she held her family close, feeling a sense of belonging and safety that she had longed for during her journey. The cowboy stood nearby, quietly observing, knowing that this reunion was a culmination of the trust, courage, and perseverance they had shared. Nayeli's return was more than just a homecoming. It was a moment of reflection and healing. She shared her story with her family, recounting the challenges she had faced, the punishment she had endured, and the strength she had discovered within herself. Her parents listened with a mixture of sorrow and pride, acknowledging the pain she had suffered, but also celebrating her resilience and bravery. The cowboy listened quietly as well, feeling proud of the role he had played in supporting her journey, while recognizing that the true strength had always been hers. Over the next few days, Nayeli worked to reintegrate into her community, slowly regaining a sense of normalcy and routine. She participated in daily activities, shared meals, and spent time with her family and friends. Each interaction, each small moment, reinforced the lessons she had learned. That trust could be rebuilt, that courage was essential in facing challenges, and that hope could survive even in the darkest times. The cowboy remained nearby, offering guidance and support when needed, but allowing her the space to reclaim her independence and strength. The story of Nayeli's ordeal and journey gradually spread through the community. People who had once doubted her began to understand the truth of her experience, recognizing the injustice she had faced and the courage she had shown. Her story became a lesson for others, a reminder of the importance of compassion, fairness, and the power of standing by those who had suffered unfairly. Nayeli realized that her experience, though painful, had the potential to inspire positive change in the lives of others. As the weeks passed, Nayeli continued to reflect on the journey and the lessons it had taught her. She understood that life would continue to present challenges, but she now faced them with a renewed sense of strength, clarity, and resilience. The cowboy's presence had shown her the importance of trust and support, while her own determination had proven that she could endure hardship and emerge stronger. Together, these experiences had shaped her into a more confident and empowered individual, ready to face the future with courage and hope. Nayeli and the cowboy spent quiet moments together, reminiscing about the journey through the desert. They spoke of the challenges they had faced, the moments of fear and uncertainty, and the small victories that had kept them moving forward. They laughed at lighter memories, shared quiet reflections, and recognized the deep bond that had formed between them. It was a bond built on trust, respect, and the shared experience of overcoming adversity, a bond that would remain strong even as they returned to their separate lives. In those reflective moments, Nayeli realized that the punishment she had endured, though heartbreaking, had not defined her. Instead, it had revealed her strength, resilience, and ability to persevere. She understood that hardships could serve as lessons, teaching courage, empathy, and self-reliance. And she knew that her journey, though difficult, had also been an opportunity to connect with another person, the cowboy, who had walked beside her and shown the power of kindness and support. The cowboy, too, reflected on the journey. He had encountered many challenges in his life, but helping Nayeli had been a unique experience. It had reminded him of the importance of compassion, courage, and standing up for what is right, even when it is difficult. He admired Nayeli's strength and resilience, recognizing that her journey had been both a struggle and a triumph. Their shared experience had left a lasting impression on him, reinforcing the idea that humanity, trust, and kindness could thrive even in the harshest conditions. As time passed, Nayeli continued to grow in confidence and strength. She became a source of inspiration for her community, showing others that courage and determination could overcome even the most challenging circumstances. She shared her story openly, emphasizing the importance of resilience, honesty, and compassion. Through her experiences, she helped others recognize that facing adversity with strength and dignity could lead to growth and positive change. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, Nayeli stood with the cowboy, looking out over the landscape that had been both a place of hardship and a place of transformation. The sky was painted with shades of orange, pink, and purple, reflecting the beauty and complexity of the journey they had shared. Nayeli took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace and hope that she had never known before. "We made it," she said softly. The cowboy nodded, a gentle smile on his face. "Yes, we did, and you showed courage every step of the way." Nayeli smiled, understanding the truth in his words. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and injustice, yet she had persevered. She had found strength within herself, learned the value of trust and compassion, and reclaimed her voice and dignity. The journey had been difficult, but it had also been transformative, shaping her into a stronger, wiser, and more empowered person. As night fell, Nayeli and the cowboy parted ways, each returning to their own life but carrying the lessons of their shared journey. Nayeli felt a renewed sense of purpose and hope, ready to embrace the future with courage and determination. The cowboy watched her leave, proud of her strength and grateful for the experience they had shared. Both knew that the journey had changed them, leaving an enduring mark of resilience, trust, and humanity. And so, Nayeli's story came full circle. The punishment that had broken her heart had also revealed her inner strength. The journey through the desert had shown her the power of trust and compassion, and her return to her community had reaffirmed the importance of hope and courage. Though the path had been difficult, it had led her to a place of safety, self-discovery, and empowerment. In the quiet moments that followed, Nayeli reflected on everything she had endured and learned. She realized that life's challenges, no matter how harsh, could be met with resilience, trust, and compassion. And she knew that, no matter what lay ahead, she was capable of facing the future with courage, dignity, and hope. The desert, the townspeople, and the journey itself had all left their mark, shaping her into a person ready to embrace life fully and bravely.